Why don't you pro-black Pan-Africanists ever go back to Africa? This is the InSight.
This is Defenders Entertainment.
February 21st, anniversary of the date that the great and illustrious Omowale Malcolm X paid the ultimate price. So we just want to begin by paying homage to his life and his legacy. Ashe. And yes, I say Omowale. Many don't know that Malcolm X actually had a Yoruba name given to him when he was made an honorary member of a students' union at the University of Ibadan in Nigeria. With the membership, I was given a new name, Omowale. It means in the Yoruba language, the son who has come home. I meant it when I told them I have never received a more treasured honor. This was 1964, in the middle of a 6-month tour of the African continent. Papa Omowale traveled to Egypt, Ethiopia, Tanganyika, Nigeria, Ghana, Guinea, Sudan, Senegal, Liberia, Algeria, and Morocco, and met with leading lights such as Jomo Kenyatta, Julius Nyerere, Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, as well as many grassroots activists on the ground. When he returned to America, he continued to establish the Organization of Afro-American Unity and had this to say when he was asked about the possibility of Africans in America returning to Africa. After lengthy discussions with many Africans at all levels, I would say some would be welcome and some wouldn't be welcome. Those that have a contribution to make would be welcome, but those that have no contribution to make would not be welcome. I don't think any of us, if we looked at it objectively, could find fault with that. And I believe this, that if we migrated back to Africa culturally, philosophically, and psychologically, whilst remaining here physically, the spiritual bond that would develop between us and Africa through this cultural, philosophical, and psychological migration, so-called migration, would enhance our position here because we would have our contacts with them acting as roots or foundations behind us. Most people tend to focus on Papa Omowale's travels in Mecca, so the impact of his Africa sojourn is routinely overlooked. Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah even invited him to take up office in his government, while inviting Africans in general to return home to Ghana. Though Omowale Malcolm did not take up the invitation, he continued to form links and preached on the need to organize for more meaningful relationships between the motherland and its diaspora.
New bridges must be built because in the minds of the majority of our people today, Africa is too far away. So the only way you and I can point them in that direction is build new bridges. We have to have the type of understanding of Africa and the type of understanding of our people here in order to build a bridge, a contact, a line of communication between the two. And once the lines of communication have been established, and our African brothers can stretch forth their hands and reach us, and we can stretch forth our hands and reach them, why there's nothing that this blue-eyed man in this country will be able to do to you and me successfully from that day on.
The spirit of Omowale Malcolm X and Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah has remained in the hearts and minds of many. So when Ghana President Nana Akufo-Addo declared 2019 the year of return for Africans in the diaspora, the announcement was met with much excitement.
He insisted on granting easy visas to all returnees, and that we should give force to the right of abode. I think it is the duty of my government to do both of those things in commemorating of next year. But I would like to say in conclusion that the most important consequences of all the activity we're here to initiate is that together on both sides of the Atlantic, we will work together to make sure that never again will we allow a handful of people with superior technology to walk into Africa, seize our peoples, and sell them into slavery.
The truth is, black people have been returning slowly but surely for years. As far as nowadays UK is concerned, first and second generations born of parents from the continent have increasingly found back home the place to be. When unemployment rates for young black men in the UK is reported to be 55%, economic considerations certainly play a role in this decision. BBC documented some Ghana returnees' experiences in 2015. When DJ Kobe isn't moving a crowd with his music, he's Kobina Graham, a cultural studies lecturer at the Ashesi University in Accra. Despite having graduated with 2 degrees from universities in London, finding a good job 10 years ago proved very difficult, a challenge that provoked him to start thinking about other alternatives. For those of us with parents and grandparents from the Caribbean, the ancestral home is often just as appealing as the parental home. Check this interview from London-born and raised Shakina Chinedu on her return to live in Gambia a few years ago.
I'm representing the African Diaspora Returnees Association, and we are a group of people who have returned to live in Gambia because we see ourselves as Africans. So I'm representing that group.
Why did you make the decision, knowing that Africa has a history of political instability, history of backwardness in terms of economy, corruption and all that? You left the life that you lived in, probably in the Caribbean or in the UK or somewhere in America, to come and live in the Gambia.
Wow, you made some sweeping statements there. Political instability, poor economy. That's not the Africa that I see. That's the Africa that the BBC and the CNN tells us about. Africa's our home as black people, and we have to make it what it is. It's imperative that we come home and we build Africa so that we don't make the statements that you made about the political instability, the poorness. Africa is a rich continent, and everybody else can see that except us. This is why other people are coming here, but we're not coming here. So we need to come here and we need to enjoy the fruits of Africa.
Powerful, powerful interview. The full link is in the description. Not having parents born on the continent does present some unique challenges in terms of citizenship, however. Mutabaruka spoke out on this at the Roots Homecoming Festival in 2014, while celebrating the fact that former President Yahya Jammeh had removed Gambia from the British Commonwealth.
What I am saying is that I think this festival should be a part of that reconstruction of how Gambia and other leaders in Africa view we who went across the Atlantic Ocean, not by free will but by force. And now we have survived the bottom of the ocean, the whips and the lashes, to return to Gambia, only to hear that we have to have a visa, when we did not leave here with a visa. A visa to Africa should be illegal by the governments of Africa, considering it was the colonial masters who institutionalized this crazy, mixed up piece of paper.
Shakina Chinedu also addressed this point earlier this year.
We're seen as British, American, Caribbean, South American, other people, but we are Africans. Why are we not considered in the Constitution also? I have to carry an alien's card. I'm not an alien, I'm an African.
On the other hand, whether continental or diasporan, a major contradiction is exposed by the fact that those who do return from the West often have access to resources that afford them an upper middle class life, where they could only afford a working class life in the UK. Afua Hirsch addressed this point in a Guardian article, where she guards against dismissing the inequalities that still exist between Africa's increasingly visible international and urban elite, a category many returnees fall into, and the vast majority of Africans. The reality is that on so many levels, access to the West is still a fault line for determining privilege. For example, Entrepreneurs in West Africa currently find that borrowing money for their businesses typically comes with interest rates of up to 30%, an unrealistic burden by any standards. Returnees, on the other hand, who have access to loans from foreign banks, can enjoy single-digit interest rates, effectively dominating local markets. Real talk, what good is a higher quality of life if it comes at the expense of the masses of your people? Then for those on the continent, there's the issue of mobility from one nation to the next, which is currently impeded by the existence of borders drawn up by European colonizers. Dr. Mumbi speaks on some new legislation that may address this issue in the future.
Two different protocols have actually been signed by all the presidents on the continent. One of them is the African Continental Free Trade Area. 50 out of 55 countries have agreed to it. 22 need to ratify it by December. 6 already have. But that means there'll be a free movement of goods on the continent. Now, the Western nations are eyeing that like, you know, they're ready to take advantage of that. But why can't our own people do that? And then the second thing is the protocol for free movement of people. This is huge. And this is where, regardless of where you were born on the African continent, you can live wherever you want, you can work wherever you want. Now, 30 out of 55 countries have agreed. 15 needed to ratify. Only 2 have, because governments are a bit, you know, because once you collapse the borders like that, governments will also start to lose the stronghold and the dictatorial power they have on their different nations. So they're a bit reluctant. But once this happens, that also makes it possible for Africans in the diaspora to have an African passport.
Omowale Malcolm X spoke about developing cultural and economic ties to the continent. Luckily, there are organizations assisting us all in making this happen in 2019. First up, Calabash Hub presents the Ghana Cultural Experience, an exciting 11-day grassroots journey designed to unify people across the divide by exposing places of historical interest to reconnect with sisters and brothers through educational trips, study tools, and information. The word grassroots here emphasizes its groundedness with the masses of the people. Activities include a visit to the Ashanti Kingdom, customary and formal ceremonies, Adinkra stamping and kente weaving, as well as a visit to the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial. Then there's Sister Shanice's exclusive diaspora business, leisure and pleasure trip to Zimbabwe. Southern Africa we're there. This trip adds a business element featuring workshops and site tours that enlighten you specifically on business and investment opportunities in Zimbabwe. Links to both these initiatives can be found in the description. I do want to highlight the fact that these initiatives are being led by Black women. Shout out to Sister E and Sister Shanice. Go on, do your thing, my sisters. With all of that said, should more of us be considering repatriating to Africa either part-time or full-time? Is Malcolm X's vision of a Black diaspora connected up to an African power base a distant pipe dream or an imminent reality? How do returnees avoid living large at the expense of the masses and instead contribute to building a strong and powerful Africa? Those are the questions, and this is the insight. Peace and blessings, kings and queens. Another insight in the bag, and I hope you're enjoying how we're keeping it consistent for you. You know what I'm saying? Keeping that consistent content rolling now. Make sure you let a friend know, you know. Like the thing, subscribe to the channel, comment, yeah, and also share with your friends and family. This particular insight was inspired by that particular interview with Sister Shakina Chinedu, who's a sister that I'm familiar with. I know her personally. So I send a special shout out to her, and you know, I send you many blessings, my sister, with the work that you're doing in the Gambia. You know what I mean? But I saw the video going around on the WhatsApp and on the social media, and the conversations that it was causing. You know, it was very interesting to me. So I figured let's do an insight on it and link it with the anniversary of the assassination of Omowale Malcolm X. Yeah, it's very important that we, you know, let's pinpoint these particular annual events in our life cycle, kings and queens, because them people there, our ancestors, gave so much for us. So the least that we can do is remember them kings and queens. You know what I mean? Want to hear from some returnees on this one. I know many people are returning to the continent either for business or to live or in the name of Pan-African activism. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions. Share them, kings and queens. And if you haven't done so yet, but are planning to do so, and even if you're not planning to do so, but just got an opinion on the thing, we want to hear from you right about now, kings and queens. Log your opinions in the comment section below. And we look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks' time for another Insight. Always remember, you ain't got nothing if you ain't got Kush. Peace, blessings, 10 damn word.
gotKushTV is supported by Better Marketing Mastery, Defenders Entertainment, The Hidden Science Academy, Black History Walks, Centre of Pan-African Thought, the Manhood Academy for Boys, the Al-Qaeda and Revivalist Movement, and Marifa Circle.